I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, August the 24th, brought to you in part by the Witex Corporation, providing livestock producers with excellence in animal health. For more information, go to y-tex.com. Showlists were down to come out here early in the week, and they always kind of put those reports together on Showlists. I normally don't take a lot of stock in them because, you know, why would you tip your hand and tell people stuff? And I'm not sure how that information is put together. In fact, many years ago, I had a co-worker that ran the market news program in Nebraska, and I used to go in and fill in for him at different times. And he had somebody call that was putting a show list together every Monday morning, and they would ask him for the information, and he would tell them to give the same quote every single week. And of course, back in those days, it was 100,000, and back in those days, you used to get 100,000 in Nebraska and 100,000 in Kansas and 100,000 in Texas, and maybe we still have that. They just sell a formula, but in the directions when you went in to fill in for them, whenever those people call, you're just supposed to tell them 100,000. So I don't know, maybe that just told me that not take a lot of stock in that. But I do see the show list report that comes out on Mondays most weeks, and this time it was significantly lower in every major area of feedlots. And the one that I saw was reported was 27,000 head down for the three-state total, which was Texas, Kansas, and Nebraska. But everybody knows the number of cattle that are placed on the show list that the cattle feeders are ready to sell is down big. And we've got the packers right where we want them. We've been waiting on this, guys. And I've been telling you the last couple of weeks, these packers are scrambling for cattle. They need to speed up the chains so they can take advantage of these box beef cutouts that they've really launched up here again. And we're, I guess we can say we're in a pandemic, but we're not facing, shutdowns in most areas yet. I know they're starting to make people wear masks and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say we're in the middle of a black swan right now, but they've really elevated the box beef cutout values, and they've launched them up there, and they want to take advantage of that. They've got a lot of captive supply cattle that are promised to them through formulas or contracts or even promised on the grids, but they still need negotiated cattle, and that's the only way we can gain any market position is through negotiated means, what little there are. So we've got to continue to do that, and the few of you guys that still sell negotiated cattle, you got to ask more. And we've seen some cattle sell at significantly higher prices here towards the end of last week and already starting out this week. But I've also heard rumors, and they weren't confirmed because I didn't see them on the report, of some people that are giving in to prices that are near steady with last week. We don't have to do that. This is one of the weeks that's an opportunity to gain ground. So you just have, it's up to the few of you guys, and I know that everybody rides on your coattails and they're getting frayed, and your big corporate feeders ride on the coattails of the few independent, guys that still sell, the mavericks that are still out there selling cattle negotiated means. But we're all counting on you guys to ask more money for cattle. It's the only way you gain any, and I've told you 1,000 times, it's damn hard to gain any ground whenever you're selling off last week's market all the time. But we've got optimism galore out here, and just everything is going up. The board was up big to start the week here. They've been delivering cattle against the board, and it really hasn't hurt even our spot August month much at all. It's pressured it some, but it hasn't hurt it, and we saw big gains to start the week out. This is a week where we ought to be gaining $3, $4, $5 cash, and it's up to you guys to do it. Talked on the last visit about how NCBA is trying to water down some of the labeling. We've been promised that we can get some truth in labeling on product of the USA. We've yet to see it enforced, but we've been promised that we're going to get that. And then NCBA, signs a petition that they want to change it to processed in the USA. Well, that is not what we were wanting, that may be what your Packer members are wanting, but we're not wanting processed in the USA. I was talking with some of my contacts that I have a lot of respect for on Monday, and they said, don't forget, these corporate feeders rely on Mexican imported calves and feeder cattle for a lot of their product that they own themselves, not that they're buying out there, but they're backgrounding and they're putting on feed too. And those little 3 and 4 weight Mexican calves that they bring up, and they bring up significant numbers of them. And for the most part, people have gotten used to that. They've been doing that for decades. And the reason that they prefer those cattle, it's sure not the quality, but the health on them is outstanding. They're thrifty. They think they've died and gone to heaven, much like your Mexican immigrants that are trying to get across the border. But they come up here, they got a ration that's giving them everything they need. Most of them are stunted a little bit, so they got a lot of compensatory gain when they come up. And we don't blame guys that bring in Mexican cattle and background them. And a lot of them, those producers have turned to Mexican imports rather than buying cattle out of the Southeast because the health on them is better. And I have always thought and still think that it has a lot to do with the humidity that they're coming out of, and they're harder to straighten up, where these Mexican imports are coming out of a real dry, arid place, and it's kind of a survival of the fittest. If they've gotten to the point where they're healthy enough to ship, they're pretty darn tough, and they get up here and they get plenty of groceries, and they just kind of go on from there. But if we get product of the USA, those Mexican cattle that they bring up, sometimes you see significant discounts on them when they sell as yearlings if they got the M brand on their hip. Sometimes you see independent feeders that have tried to feed them, and then they want to sell those cattle fat. They might have to take a discount on them. But your corporate feeders that bring them up, they never have to incur a penalty on them. They just move them right through the system. But that product of the USA, if we can get some truth in labeling on that, that would mean those cattle would not be eligible for that. That's where I think a lot of your blowback is. And it may be tough to get that done because those big corporates, of course, they're tied in with the Packers, and they've got a lot of money and they've got a lot of power. But if we could happen to get truth in labeling on product of the USA, and then this bill that Senator Rounds is pushing through here to make sure that product of the USA is cattle that are born, raised, backgrounded, fed, slaughtered, the whole deal in USA, and then that would be fair for your consumers to come in if they wanted to pay more for those products than they could, or maybe more likely they would probably step over the products that didn't have that label. And so we'll see what happens as we go forward on that. Let's talk about this big board that we saw to start out the week. August live cattle futures up 217 this late in the spot contract month. That's significant there. 126.45, and they're delivering cattle every morning against that board. It hasn't hurt it that much. October live cattle futures up 290 at 131.95. We've got to ask more for these fat cattle so we can start moving towards those big prices that were promised here on the futures board. You go on your back months and it was up 45 on some of your farthest out, and then up 230 on some of your more nearby contracts. Feeder cattle, August feeder cattle was down. All your other out fronts were up big. You think, well, why was August feeder cattle down? Well, we're getting to the end of the month. It's a cash settled commodity there, and it's got to line up with your CME index. And it's running at a significant premium right now. The latest available CME index was 155.73. That's similar to your RTI that I give you every day on here, but that's kind of the weighted average on your 700 to 899 pound steers. through your reported markets up through the middle 12 states, and also includes current delivery direct sales there that USDA gets. But when we're running at a significant premium like that, it's going to have to back up because they have to line up or people are going to start to get paid. But you go on out to your September, which is not very far away, that contract was up $1.80 at 167.30. These cattle are going to start getting significantly higher. They've got to meet up with those things. But we're sitting at 158.20. We feel like cattle are selling pretty good now. And the very next month is 167.30 based on an 800-pound steer. Wow. And then you go on your back months of feeder cattle up $2.40 to up $3.05. Your corn didn't do much, but it's looking like it's not going to be up there. We were all worried about $7 corn and beyond. We had some analysts that were out there saying a few months ago that corn was going to be $12, $15, $20 a bushel. Shit, it's down here at $5.35 and a half, which is still more than what we've used to been paying, but it's nothing like some people had projected, and that was down 1.5 cents a bushel for your new crop December contract. How about your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade in your 5-area feeding region? Better movement than we've seen, 78,200 head. That compares to 63,100 head. But the same week a year ago, we were about the same way we are now as far as your pandemic and things. Same week a year ago, 114,900 head. That's what we need to be moving. We need to step up this negotiated cash, and you guys that just promise your cattle to your packers, you might want to consider, if you're not under contract, to get out on the negotiation and sell those cattle and haggle over them a little bit. Maybe we can get a better price. Live sales and steers and heifers last week, 121 to 129.50. Weighted average on live steers in your 5-area feeding region, 125.47. As a whole market spread, that was steady to $1 higher in the southern plains, $1 to $2, mostly $2 higher in the northern plains. But the weighted average on live steers was up $2.19. Now, we had gained a lot of ground on dress the previous week, not so much this week, but dress steers and heifers last week sell from $197 to $205. That was mostly $2 higher. But we didn't see that on your weighted average comparison, but sometimes that happens going from a week where we were gaining a lot of ground into this week where it was, your whole numbers showed improvement, but the weighted average wasn't that spectacular. Weighted average on dress steers, 201.15, that was up 52 cents compared to your weighted average from the previous week. Nationwide negotiated, we sold 95,800 head. About 27% of those was for the 2 to 4 week delivery. But like I said, 95,800 head negotiated in the whole nation compared to formula sales of 270,800. That's why packers don't have to come to their milk whenever they're needing cattle, because they're getting so much of their needs already filled. But I like to look at that new report, the weekly report, the net distribution report on your sales there, and it's kind of showing starting to show a trend. We don't see as much live sales as we do dressed whenever you're incorporating all the 4 different methods of selling cattle. But on a live basis, negotiated sales are not holding up to some of the other methods there. Negotiated sales for last week live 123.26. Formula net sales 124.29, which is slightly higher, about $1 or so there. Forward contract sales, of course, we're going into an up market big time. 125.67 live. Now, for some reason on the dressed, it's not showing higher, but still talking about live. Negotiated grid was just a few pennies per 100 better than negotiated cash. Negotiated grid net sales last week 123.43. Now on a dress basis, it's a whole different deal. Negotiated dress sales are running off and leaving all the other methods of selling cattle. Last week it was $200.21 dress negotiated. formula net for last week, 196.68. That's significant, guys. That's a significant, and everybody says that's the way you need to sell them. And the bulk of the cattle are selling dressed, especially when you get into some of these other forms besides negotiated. But forward contract dressed has always fallen back to the last three reports. We've had three of these reports now, and they've all shown that dressed net sales are not nearly as good as some of your other methods. But 191.23 on a forward contract dressed, and net negotiated grid 197.67. Still, $2.50 or something behind what your negotiated cash is. A little bit of sales already trickling in. I told you we had some regionals buying cattle even over the weekend as high as 130. Didn't get reported because they don't have to report them. You have to harvest a minimum amount of cattle before you have to report, and then that particular regional didn't have to do it. But Iowa had about 500 head sell on Monday, $2 slick dressed. You need to ask more for that, guys. We're selling cattle out there at 204, 205. You need to ask more than that. Your family feeder there that sells early in the week, Nebraska, 1,500 head there, 129.75. That's scaring the hell out of 130. That's a full buck higher than what we had last week on the same set of cattle there. So we're probably going to get 130 here unless your board falters here going forward. But you got to ask for it or you're not going to get it. What else is going on? I want to remind you guys about Livestock Risk Services. Got an office right there in the Exchange Building, Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City. They can help you get a policy on your livestock risk protection. You don't have to have a lot of upfront costs. You don't have to worry about margin calls and things like that. You can lock in a price right there, and that's an awful good way to hedge your cattle there, get some risk protection. But you get a hold of Livestock Risk Services. They've got a new website coming out here, not quite up online there, but the best way to get a hold of them right now is to email dmoss@livestockriskservices.com. Let's talk about another thing that's going on here on Tuesday in the evening is Abingdon Feeder Cattle Association out in Virginia Quality Assurance Program there. They've got a sale. It's an evening sale, starts at 7 o'clock Eastern, so that gets more towards the late afternoon as you work your way back towards the middle part of the country. But they've got a sale here Tuesday night on that 24th, and you guys that are kind of in that Eastern Corn Belt, you need to look at those sales on there. They've got about 19 lots. Almost all of them, I think, are load lots. You will love the cattle. You won't be criticizing the quality at all or the condition on them. They've got several deals of calves on there. All those calves will be 60 days weaned, and they check on that. I guarantee them 60 days weaned, and those calves will be double vaccinated, and the quality will be outstanding. They've got a few yearlings on the deal too. Butch Foster, who's the marketing agent for the Virginia Cattlemen's Association, he'll be there. I kind of consider him the Bob Wills of cattle marketing out east there. Whenever you listen to that sale, you need to get on the dvauction.com and just listen to how they sell those cattle. They auction them off, but it's more of a talk through auction there. It's not a fast-paced deal. But you can get on there and bid on those cattle. You can feel real comfortable about what you're getting, about where you're at. Butch Foster is on the line there. If you need to find out some more information about those cattle, you can get a hold of him. He absolutely knows everybody that's got cattle in Virginia, especially Southern Virginia, and works closely with Abingdon Feeder Cattle Association. They've got a brand new website that's got a lot more information on it than they've ever had. Go to Abingdon Feeder Cattle Association and look at their brand new website. But I recommend that sale, and like I said, it's going to be on dvauction.com. Get a hold of them. Get a firm to get on there and bid, and enjoy that sale. And it's a good way for you guys in the Eastern Corn Belt to get a hold of some really top quality cattle, and you don't have that much freight on them. Let's talk about your brick and mortar sales and kind of what happened to start the week out on Monday. Real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Monday, sitting at 155.36. That gained 91 cents just on the day on Monday, and your markets were higher, of course, with help from the board. How could they not? But some of your big sales, high volume sales, were not as heavily run with cattle as normal. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City only had 5,500. That would be a light run for them. We've sold a lot of those cattle out there. A lot of the yearlings, we hadn't started seeing the full run of calves yet, so we're kind of in a lull there. But feeder steers were steady to $3 higher in Oklahoma City. Feeder heifers $3 to $6 higher. Steer calves, now a lot of them would be unweaned, $4 to $7 lower, and the heifer calves that they had on hand were mostly steady. Joplin Regional Stockyards, 4,600 head, which is a fairly moderate run for them. Feeders, steers and heifers sold steady to $4 higher, similar to Oklahoma City, and the calves were steady to $3 lower, and there again a lot of them being pressured by unweaned calves, and it's still hot out, so not a lot of friends there for those. Show you a sale that you won't see this report much anywhere else, but Faith Livestock Auction in Faith, South Dakota had a very impressive sale, and I'm going to show you an impressive market report out of there. It's an automated market report from Cattle Market Central. 4,100 head there from Faith, South Dakota, and look through these quotes here. There's many of them that are very impressive. You know, they're in a drought area too, getting a lot of early spring-born calves there, and a lot of demand for those little pee-wee calves, and I mean the quality burning up on them. These are ranch-raised calves. So those 3-weight steer calves averaged 230.75. And then about 294 head of your 7-weight steers averaged 758 at 168.04 on your weighted average price. 373 head of your 8-weight steers averaged 874. That's on the top end at 162.74 on your weighted average price, guys. That's big. 230 head of your 9-weight steers averaged 956, 156.79 on your weighted average price. How about the heifers? 3-weight little pee-wee heifer calves averaged 197.38. 675 head of your 7-weight heifers averaged 744 at 159.31. And 800 head of 8-weight heifers, not keeping a lot of heifers back, you guys see that. 8-weight heifers averaged 852, 153.25 on your weighted average price. How about some other individual quotes around the circuit? How about West Point, Nebraska? That's a Shaban auction there, affiliated with Dunlap, Iowa there. But I had a Feeder Flash gang member, buddy of mine from out in that country, send me a quote out of there, and he ran second on them. You know, a lot of times I don't give you heifer quotes, and you guys say, why is that? And I say, well, every time I give somebody a big heifer quote, they're going to think they're replacements, or maybe they're spayed or something like that. And so, you know, it's easier just to stick with the steers for the most part and extrapolate from there. But they had a string of heifers in West Point, Nebraska, 194 head of them, weighed 800 pounds on the average at 162.50. Neither were they spayed, and they did not sell to go back as replacements. Feeder heifers, guys. Big time quote. How about another big quote? Tri-State Livestock, McCook, Nebraska, 60 head of 823 pound steers, averaged 167.75. But the best quote that I saw anywhere come out of a market that I've never heard of before, and as a Feeder Flash gang member, give me the heads up on that one. I looked it up, and sure enough, they had these big time quotes out of drought region in North Dakota. Now these cattle would have had a lot of condition, no doubt, coming out of that drought out area up there, but your Zach Tran top quote for the day comes out of Wishick Livestock Sales in Wishick, North Dakota. 3 loads of black steers averaged 740 pounds at 177.75. And that's your Feeder Flash for Tuesday.